Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Second Cup of Coffee. Pastor Tom here with you. It's week 3, and we are going through a series called Hearing from God. We're encasing around particularly people who have a desire to be prophetic out of 1 Corinthians 14:1. Desire spiritual gifts, but especially that you may prophesy. It's not a bad desire, but through these weeks we've kind of laid some foundational things that you really need to consider as you're moving forward in the gifting that God has put in your life. One of the things that I would say is, and I don't know if I'll talk about it in its fullest extent, but realize being prophetic and doing those things, there's a cost that comes with it, because there'll be times where you're put in situations where you may have to speak to some things that maybe you don't want to speak to. I don't want to get too deep into that. That's probably an advanced course, so to speak. And what do you mean? I'm not offering courses in this, but there's levels to your learning. Not like a video game where, hey, I conquered this. No, it's not a checklist, but there's things that you walk through that even if people talk to you about it, you can kind of file it away, but until you walk through it, there's a grace that comes with walking through it and a wisdom that comes that may not be there before you get there. So what do I need in my life if I'm desiring this? I need somebody to mentor me. I need somebody who is prophetic to mentor me. I come from a prophetic, apostolic, and prophetic house, and so there's a lot of prophetic people in the church that I am a pastor and I'm a part of. There's other prophetic pastors that I know. And my wife is, even though she may not sign off on this, she is extremely prophetic and a wonderful sounding board for me. So what does that look like in your life? Before you give the word, bounce the word. Okay? Before you give the word, bounce the word. You have to be a person under protection and under authority. What does it mean by bounce the word? Oftentimes I'll bounce a word that I have for somebody off Ileana to see what the prophetic sound comes back from her. I'll write up the email and say, yep, that looks good. Or I don't know about this part. Or just happened this morning before we filmed. I said, hey, I think I have a prophetic word. And I was explaining to her and she's like, how do you know it's for them? And it was a resound back to me that from the Spirit of God, that as He walked me through, I realized it wasn't. It was something else in my heart, and He was able to correct that and then bring me to a peace about not releasing that word, okay? So you may not have a wife or a husband in your life like that, but ask God to bring a pastor or a mentor, male or female. If you're a female, it should be probably a female, although it can be male. Just watch those relationships. They can be tricky. But that's all I'll say about that. But some sort of covering for people who can help you, particularly when you're starting out, to help refine your hearing. Last week I talked about suspect your own righteousness. It's hard in the beginning to really put that into play, and sometimes you need an outside voice in your life that can help you suspect your own righteousness. Don't know if that's God. Don't know if it's time to release that. Is this really the person that God is saying this to, like Ileana did for me today? Now, you may say to me, well, if I'm on the street or God gives me a word, I get that. This is a rule of thumb, not, hey, I got a word for somebody in Starbucks. Let me call my mentor before I give it. In the beginning, you may want to do that. But some of that is trial and error, right? Some of the stuff is really going to be trial and error in that regard. But particularly if you're going to give a word in the church, like in the front of the church, God is saying this to the congregation, you got to submit that to the pastor who is running the service, because they're trying to hear for the whole, and you need to do that decently and in order. If they ask you to say no, or it's not for this time, you just got to accept that. And you've got to trust that. Why? And this is the key to that. I'm going to give you little nuggets as we go through today. What you hear and when the application of it is could be a big distance in between. So just because you heard it today does not mean that it is for today. And that's part of your hearing. But you won't know that till you submit it. Now, nobody wants to take that walk, right? I don't want to walk up to my pastor, have a conversation. I feel like everybody's watching me, and he's like, yeah, no, not right now. Now I got to walk back to my seat. And now I know everybody's watching me. No, they're not. But what God is watching is, are you faithful to stay under covering? Are you faithful to submit? And are you faithful to walk back without a hard heart? Because what I'm doing in you is training you to hear me. And right now, I need other people to help you refine that hearing in you. If you hear nothing else today, one of the big reasons you have to bounce it before you give it is my soul can sound a whole lot like the Spirit of God. I am not arguing that you hear the Spirit of God at all, but I am telling you that your soul or even demonic influences can mask their voice and convince you that it is the Spirit of God. And if you don't bounce it, you could do more damage than you do good. God covers that. I could give you story after story. I won't bore you with my mistakes and how I've messed that up and how I haven't followed that and all of those things. But I will tell you, having come at least to a portion of the other side of that, there's grace, there's mercy, there's forgiveness, and there's growth. My heart in sharing this month about hearing God is that you would grow in your hearing and grow in your delivery. But in an effort to grow in your delivery, I would encourage you, bounce it before you give it, because it will help you refine your hearing as you move along. If this means something to you, please share it. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, our app, or on YouTube. Subscribe there. We would appreciate that. But at any rate, we love you, and we're grateful that you joined us.